We owe a huge debt of gratitude to the writers of our favorite TV shows. Most of the time, there's a standard and conventional way of writing a TV show, but these particular shows decide to play by their own rules. There's no doubt that these writers were thinking outside the box, and their unique ways of writing ultimately made for some great moments on the small screen. Don't forget to click on that subscribe button if you haven't already to get all the latest videos from Screen Rant every day. Also, can you name the hit film based off of these emoji? Stay tuned for the answer.
Behold, Mr. Hanky!
South Park. Animation isn't an easy medium to work in. Generally, it takes quite a bit of time for all the pieces to come together and make just one episode of quality animated TV. For The Simpsons, it takes around 6 to 8 months just for one episode. While the quality is still great, South Park actually plays by their own rules when it comes to making their episodes. When you watch South Park, you may have noticed that recent media events actually get touched upon by the show not long after said events have transpired. Did South Park writers Stone and Parker have access to time machines and write the future? Not at all, but that would be pretty amusing.
What a great story, it has everything.
See, the team behind South Park actually gets their episodes on the air within 6 days usually. When you think about it, that's completely insane when you compare it to other animated shows on the air right now. So how do they do it? First of all, they do their animation in-house instead of outsourcing it overseas. Secondly, they spitball random ideas until the laughs come out. When inspiration is lacking, there's usually Lego building and McDonald's eating to help win the day.
I had so much promise. I was personable. I was bright. Oh, maybe not academically speaking, but...
Seinfeld. Seinfeld is no longer an active sitcom on TV, but the show's popularity hasn't waned at all since it wrapped up production. This series is immensely popular, and it's regularly rewatched by fans all the time. Part of what made Seinfeld so memorable was its stories. Naturally, the way these stories were developed were pretty unique, and helped make Seinfeld as memorable as it is today. A lot of the stories actually come from Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David's lives, including next-door neighbor Kramer, who became one of the core characters.
Well, you better believe it.
But the show wasn't going to be a biography or anything, so they needed other wacky stories to tell. Enter the cycle of writers. The show would actually hire writers for each season to share their unique and unusual stories with the rest of the writing team, and they'd later be fired at the end of the season, making room for new writers and new experiences to make their mark on the show. As medieval as the practice might seem, it did allow for a lot of fresh stories to be presented, and it ensured that the core writing team would never run out of ideas. Clearly, this unusual practice worked well for Seinfeld.
Angelina Jolie was on, and she adopted a baby from Asia, and she said that it changed her life, and that really inspired me. So I want you to look in to see how much a little Chinese baby would cost.
The Office. The version of The Office many of you are familiar with is in fact a remake of a UK series by the same name, but the American version of the show did something very unique during its pilot episode. Instead of starting from scratch and establishing new characters and whatnot, the writers actually just did the same exact thing the British did on their pilot. While this definitely made their lives easy on the first episode, the move actually left the writers scrambling to work on episode 2, as they had to essentially start from scratch while the show was already in production. In order to get the right feeling for the office lifestyle that so many people live on a day-to-day basis, the writers actually went to real offices around the US and took notes of the inner workings of the workspaces. The writers, including series creator Greg Daniels, used a similar technique when working on Parks and Recreation and King of the Hill, giving them a first-hand account rather than a second-hand opinion, which may have been over-exaggerated. However, the writers ended up with so much material they ended up being much longer than the average 22-minute episode. This resulted in some noticeably choppy cuts from time to time.
I'm Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise.
Star Trek: The Next Generation. There's a funny little thing about Star Trek: The Next Generation that might make you groan in agony or make you wish it would happen to more shows, depending on your opinion on the matter. For most shows, a writer comes up with a concept for an episode and turns it over to a writing team to help develop the ideas and dialogue and whatnot. While this was definitely the case on The Next Generation, it wasn't the norm on all the episodes. If you've ever watched The Next Generation, you may notice that as a whole, the tone of the series is sometimes all over the place.
What is that? Unknown.
This is because some of the episodes are actually written by the fans. At the time, it was the only show to have the fans contribute to the show by having them send in unsolicited scripts, making it the first pit stop in official fan fiction. For better or for worse, that is. But there were some great episodes that came out of the experiment.
As we destroy them to save ourselves.
Some would argue that some of the best came from the fans. While the concept may seem unusual in practice, there have been some great shows launched by spec scripts since The Next Generation. Steady. No! The Simpsons. The Simpsons have had an excellent team of writers working on their show for the many years it's been on. Generally, these writers get together in a room and pitch ideas off each other as they develop episodes of the show. This is what Jason Schwartzwelder used to do, until he stopped showing up to them. He was known to be a chronic chain smoker, and would continue to light them up indoors despite that being a major no-no.
Please don't tell me you're smoking in a government building, because that is precisely the kind of infraction that can cost a couple of sisters their promotion.
So, what happened next? Well, Jason found his niche by becoming something of a recluse. He would go over to a local diner and work on writing great Simpsons moments in the comfort of his little booth at the diner, where he chain smoked and drank coffee all day. It was here that he wrote up moments like the Bart license plate and episodes like Bart the General and You Only Move Twice. When the government moved to ban smoking indoors completely, Schwartzwelder actually bought the booth and installed it at home. Since he was never involved in any of the meetings or for that matter much of anything around the show, many people actually thought Jason Schwartzwelder was a ghost or a pseudonym. Thankfully, he can be seen in the show from time to time in the earlier seasons. Stranger Things. Usually, a big-budget runaway show was developed by a production company or network to help place them at the top of the mountain. But Netflix hasn't been playing by the rules established by cable TV, thus allowing for some great work to be developed by some rather unknown people. Take the Duffer Brothers, for example. Before Stranger Things, you would have never have known who they were. That's because they actually were nobodies who weren't part of the industry. They developed Stranger Things on their own with the intention of showrunning and directing. They didn't want to be stuck in development hell for years working on a script with the network, so they just did it themselves and sent it out to a production company. Shortly after, Netflix picked up the series. The decision obviously worked out well for both Netflix and the Duffers, as the series is one of the biggest names in the industry at present. Thankfully, the brothers decided to do things their own way, and gave us the show they envisioned from the get-go. While other shows have done this, we can only hope the trend of sending in spec scripts continues to deliver quality TV. With Season 3 confirmed to be happening, fans will have to sit tight to return to the Upside Down.
But in the back of our minds, we'd know that I'm a man, and you're janitorial equipment.
In another city, we could be anyone we want.
Go. Go now, before I beg you to stay.
Futurama. Co-created by The Simpsons' own Matt Groening, Futurama was a hit science fiction comedy series that brought in the laughs and crowds. It's had a somewhat shaky history of being cancelled and revived again, but characters like Fry and Bender have become just as recognizable as Homer and Bart in the pop culture lexicon. But how Futurama gets written is another story altogether. Despite its tongue-in-cheek attitude and immature characters, Futurama actually has a lot of smarts behind the scenes. Most of the writers involved with the show are actually educated geniuses, and they either have master degrees or PhDs in their respective fields. But the fun doesn't stop there. See, these writers actually use their respective knowledge and apply mathematical theories to the show. In one instance, writer Ken Keeler actually wrote a new mathematical theory in order to rectify a plot hole in the episode Prisoner of Brenda. The theorem, known as Keeler's, has in turn inspired other theories in the field. Writer Jeff Westbrook actually reinvented mathematical auto-key ciphers in order to create a new alien text for the show. Normally, this kind of stuff would just be made up for fun, because the audience is none the wise. But when you see just how smart Futurama is, it's kinda scary.
I turned myself into a pickle, Morty! Boom! Big reveal, I'm a pickle. What do you think about that? I turned myself into a pickle! What are you just staring at me for, bro? I turned myself into a pickle, Morty.
Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty has become something of a cultural phenomenon as of late. The show has only been around for 3 seasons, yet it's firmly made itself comfortable as one of the most popular series on TV right now. But there may be a secret to Rick and Morty's success, and that lies in how the show is written. The show actually follows a very controlled formula. Co-creator Dan Harmon calls this formula his story circle. In it, you can see that the circle is divided into different criteria, ranging from the act, the tone of the act, and what exactly is happening at that moment story-wise.
Yeah, make sure you get that down.
In short, a character like Morty is thrust into the forefront and quickly discovers he needs something. This in turn launches the mission and kicks off the quest. The search begins and Rick and Morty eventually find whatever it is they're looking for.
Look, man, I'm just along for the ride on this one. You know, you're preaching to the choir here.
They ultimately have to pay for it in some way, shape, or form before returning home and experience some kind of change. Add a little improv and booze and you have yourself an episode of Rick and Morty. Once you see the formula, it's hard not to notice it every time you watch the show. But this is the tried and true way to make it, and it seems to be working very well. That's it for now, everyone. Which show do you think has the most unique method for writing? Do you think more writers should do their own thing? Or does the standard of working in a room with a team seem like a sound choice? Which show on TV do you think has the best writing today? Whatever you think, let us know in the comments below. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this on your playlist every day. Thanks for watching, and the answer to the emoji question is... did you get it right?